a good day to grace your screen this morning. I am Charles Philip Wakolam. Welcome to newspaper headlines on ACNN TV. I must say, what a time to be in Nigeria, where many people, the youths, are pressing on in their demands for good governance and a better Nigeria. Some people will say, what a time to be alive in Nigeria. You know, the youths on the street protesting, calling for something good to happen, and others on social media, everybody calling for a good governance. Let's see what the papers are reporting this morning. I'm starting with the Nation's newspaper. Protesters halt activities in Lagos, Abuja and Ibadan. Buhari meets Lawan and Gbajabiamila. Governors, Senate President, let's end the protests. Blockade in Agodi, Ibadan. Protesters attacked in Ilorin. Benin under total lockdown. NSAS leader Segalink withdraws. These are some of the stories in the Nation's newspaper. Let's see others above the lead story now. Businesses lose 10 billion daily to NSAS protest, say experts. Magu Ford's Salami panel on asset verification. That's on page 7. Tributes to go on at 86. Page 7 as well. Above the masthead now, Petrol Union, 2.556 billion pounds. I take that again. Petrol Union 2.556 billion pounds case for Supreme Court hearing. Okay, firm records 57 COVID-19 cases in Ibadan, and government says no cause for fear. Investors stake 51.9 billion naira on 3 top-tier banks. You see on the business pages 17 to 24. Minister, Nigeria targets end to steel import by 2025. Page 36. That's where it is. Okay, let's come down. Pictures of NSAS protesters. The first one in Lagos and Abuja and Benin. Some of the bottom strip stories. Thugs pre-planned attack on me. Protesters launch online radio. Government won't tolerate anarchy. NECO to reschedule exams. You see many more on the audit report indicts 265 federal agencies on 9.7 billion naira unaccounted fund. Page 7, you see details there. Let me move to the next paper with me. People's Daily newspaper. Northern Elite Group, how best Nigeria can be restructured. I guess they are making their position known on restructuring Nigeria. Page 5, that's where it is. And picture shows Professor John Akanya, Director and GMD of the African Natural Resources and Mines, Ajo Gupta, and the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, joined inspection of a steel plant in Jere, Kaduna State on Saturday. Okay, still going down. $1.5 billion steel investment brightens Nigeria's industrialization drive, says Minister. And it's on page 3. Military airstrike kill several ISWAP terrorists, destroy hideouts in Borno. Page 7. Bandits. Niger vigilante loses 170 members in 1 year. Northern Group uncovers plan to hijack NSAS protests. That's on page 10. Edo Caretaker Committee to uphold Oshomole's suspension. Page 2. Alright, that's that for the bottom strip here. I'm going up now above the lead story. New police tactical team, SWAT, commences training today. New police tactical team, SWAT, commences training today. And that's all from People's Daily. The next one is the Daily Times newspaper. Don't send armed forces against protesters. Nigerians warn federal story. And above masthead, we see an editorial, the Ondo governorship poll, and details start from front page there, continued on page 3. And coming down, pictures of NSAS protests, and it reads, NSAS protesters raise money for physically challenged protester Jane to buy a prosthetic leg in Abuja. And coming down, equities market grew by 0.86% over increase in banking shares. Others. Under economy, IMF chief economist expects a slow global recovery with pandemic still raging. Page 5. And under oil and gas, Silver pledges federal government's support for indigenous oil and gas companies. Page 4. That's where you see it. That's that for the Daily Times newspaper. And I move straight to the Blueprint newspaper now. As NSAS unrest spread to London and Coventry, further protests will hurt economy. National Assembly begs youths. And federal government alleges destabilization plot, says national security overstretched. Falana group cautions against use of soldiers. Protesters launch online radio called Sorosoke. Lalong constitutes panel on SARS. Diri Tinubu back protesters. ICRC others begin SWAT officers training today. That's on page 5. And we see a picture of President Muhammadu Buhari at the middle, with Senate President Ahmed Lawan by the left and Speaker of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila in a meeting on the ongoing nationwide NSAS protests. Bottom strip stories. Stock market to 15 trillion mark. Zenith Bank, others, gains drive stock market to 15 trillion mark. That's on page 26. DSP backs ICPC award for rejecting 2 million bribe in Akwa Ibom. Page 8. Nigeria loses 361,000 children to malnutrition annually. That's a report on page 20. IGP asks Supreme Court to stay judgment on recruitment of 10,000 constables. Page 14. And on page 7, $1.5 billion Kaduna plant may lead to Nigeria's industrial breakthrough. Federal government. Okay, now let's go up below masthead. Nigeria-Ghana diplomatic row deepens. Traders protest locked shops. Gombe to generate 450 megawatts of electricity from coal. Page 20, that's where you find it. And finally, NECO postpones exam over NSAS protest. Page 5. That's according to Blueprint newspaper. Alright, we're going to break now. On the flip side, we shall see the rest of the newspapers. Please stay right there.
Crossfire is a program that treats controversial topics and diverse issues surrounding the church and the society.
The inflow or the outbursts of people having Bibles because of printing technology. Same way, the digital revolution has also made it possible for people to have Bibles in various formats in their hands.
As an Anglican, I believe in Anglicanism. And Anglicanism is standing on a tripod of scripture, tradition, and reason. When we are about to read the Holy Gospel, all members will be made to stand up. Assuming the gospeler read from the phone, and he says this is the gospel of Christ, you are likely to confuse a lot of people because people will be seeing phone in your hand.
In the history of Holy Communion, we've never heard that somebody contacted the disease from the other person.
I think so. The truth is that when people are gathered together and anything happens, whether it is an earthquake or it is a disease or anything, it spreads faster and there are more fatalities. That's just what I'm talking about.
The first evangelist in the Bible was a woman of Samaria that Jesus met at the well. Immediately this woman met Jesus. She went into the towns and started telling everybody that come and see somebody who told me everything about myself.
The women actually supported the ministry of Christ, supported the ministry of the apostles, but they were never called apostles.
Welcome back to newspaper headlines. We've seen quite a number of stories, particularly on the NSAS protests. But now let me continue with New Telegraph newspaper. All right, still leading with NSAS. There's anger in Nigeria. Governors admit. I take that again. NSAS. There's anger in Nigeria. Governors admit. And let's see kickers. Lawan Baja begged youths, call for protests cessation. Osun governor, political thugs attempted to assassinate me. Federal government says protests hijacked to destabilize Buhari's government. Oyedepo backs protesters as Adeboye's son leads protests. See pages 3 and 31. And we see picture of a meeting with President and Senate President and the Speaker House of Representatives. Okay, bottom sweep stories. SWAT operatives to undergo toxicology tests. SWAT operatives to undergo toxicology tests. Police partner Red Cross for training. IG says personnel would have clean records. Personnel have clean records. That's on page 6. FDA painkillers during pregnancy can harm unborn baby. Painkillers during pregnancy can harm unborn baby. That's on page 30. Get details there in New Telegraph newspaper. Okay, going up now above lead story. NSAS, NECO reschedules today's examination to November 16, page 25. Pandef, federal government's appointees frustrating contracts execution in South. That's on page 25. COVID-19, NCC moves to review InfraCo framework. That's on page 6. Again, Borno declares prayer and fasting against Boko Haram, page 30. And above New Telegraph masthead, reports predicts 280 billion naira LDR debt debit for banks. Report predicts 280 billion naira LDR debit for banks. CBN to sanction lenders for non-compliance. And finally, analysts, BDC's dollar sales bolster naira in forex markets. That's on page 22. That's that for New Telegraph newspaper. I have another one, this day newspaper, and it leads with showdown looms as protesters plan lockdown of Abuja and Lagos today. Protest hijacked to destabilize federal government, says Lai Mohammed. While Lawan and Bajabiamila meet Buhari, asks demonstrators for more time. Defense Minister cautions against undermining national security. Nigerian Governors Forum. Governors concerned about rising hunger. Anxiety mounts as INEC chairman's tenure expires November 7. Honored breaches constitution and zoning agreements. The picture shows the president with Senate President and Speaker House of Reps putting heads together. That's the caption on the picture. IG lists SWAT operatives qualification as training begins today. Page 5. Above this day masthead, Supreme Court to hear Petrol Union CBN case tomorrow. Directors face criminal charges on Wednesday. And finally, OPS fears prolonged protest may adversely impact economy. That's on page 8. Alright, let's move to next one, Nigerian Tribune newspaper. As NSAS protests continue, no peace without justice. Catholic bishops tell government. And have more on pages 3, 4 and 5. They say Anglican Communion bemoans wave of insecurity and corruption. Exercise patience. Methodist prelate appeals to protesters. It's sacrilege to kill protesters, says Oyedepo. Negotiate with protesting youths immediately. Affair advises federal government. IGP leads qualification of SWAT team as training begins today. Oyo sets up platforms to report police violations. We have a picture of church service at Lekki Toll Gate with Catholic priests. Okay, attack pre-planned. Meant to kill me, says Oyetola. Southwest governors say attack act of terrorism. Page 2. And beside the pictures, ASU, why federal government stopped salaries of lecturers. Page 26. $1.5 billion steel plant will boost Nigeria's auto industry, says finance minister. That's on page 6. Only courts can declare police trust fund illegal. Chairman replies PDP governors. Only court can declare police trust fund illegal. Chairman replies PDP governors. That's on page 25. Okay. I have the next one. Nigerian Pilot newspaper happens to be the last one with me here. Yakubu dumped. Buhari dumps INEC chairman and 5 commissioners as tenure ends November 9. Shops for replacements. May appoint another chairman on acting capacity. On the ground scheming for position has started. Above lead story, total showdown as NSAS protesters float online radio. Soros. Okay. That's on page 8. Youth raise 4.1 million to buy prosthetic leg for NSAS protester. Youths raise 4.1 million naira to buy a prosthetic leg for NSAS protester. Okay, that's on page 6. Coming down, picture of Bayelsa State Governor with orders during a visit to community flood victims in a particular community. Yes, and governors worried about discontent, anger in Nigeria, says Fayemi. That's on page 9. I fully support protests against police brutality, says Governor Dewey. That's on page 11. It will be sacrilegious to shoot protesters, says Oyedepo. IGP Adamo lists qualification of SWAT operatives. Page 5. Onochie ruling party plotting to trigger crisis. That's according to PGP. NSAS protests force NECO to shift today's examination. It's on page 12. And finally from here, 18 Nigerians lack access to electricity. That's according to the REA. page 25. That's where the story can be found on Nigerian Pilot newspaper. Okay, at this point in time when the young generation of Nigeria are calling for the reformation of the country, I also recommend the reformation of our hearts, and for us all to turn and surrender to God and allow Him take over our nation. And that's the size of the show for today. Thank you for watching. I remain Charles Philip Owakolam. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Beaming from the nation's capital, we bring to you the good news through various programming, news updates, worship and teachings.
The paralysis of sin makes us to be separated from God.
Contact us for your live streaming solutions and event coverage such as synods, conferences, seminars, revivals and lots more. Engage us in showcasing your brands and services to the world through adverts and sponsorship.